Stay tuned to the end of this video to a word to our patrons. Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Talk FGO Wanted, the show where we let you know if you want to roll that 5-star. And time flows ever onward towards the sea, everybody. So we have a new limited SSR alter ego to check out. Manannan Machlir, the King of the Sea, who also happens to be Bazett Fraga McCrummets, a long-standing fake character. So that means on today's episode of Wanted, we'll do our usual format and dive into history and folklore, lore with a capital L, and fate stuff, mechanics, and more for you. Also, yes, this video is late. Sorry about that. Been very busy over the past week. Check out our streams. Wasn't expecting Valentine's quite so soon. I apologize. We'll get into it. Alrighty, so as we do, we begin at real-life history and folklore. And I'm going to apologize ahead of time for some of my Gaelic pronunciations. They don't always Latinize super easily. And also, there's usually a couple different accepted pronunciations and spellings, so I may drift a little. So, Manan, or sometimes Manannan, and often referred to as Machlir, which is son of the sea. It's a mythical warrior and king from Celtic mythology, specifically the Irish and Manx branches, though there's also some in Scottish and some other stuff we'll talk about later. Manannan is a member of the Tuatha De Danann. He is generally regarded as a deity of the ocean, though a lot of the Irish myths were written down post-Christianization, so they tend to downplay the deific status, but that seems to be a pretty decent interpretation here. Manannan is a king of the Otherworld, a realm associated with the gods and also with the dead. It's called the Otherworld. It's got a lot of different terms as well. And he is said to rule over some combination of a few different domains depending on the story and cycle. It could be Imain Ablach, Domain of the Apples, Magmel, the Plain of Delights, or Tirhanagir, the Promised Land. You've probably heard of some of those names before. Manannan's name is also the same root as the Isle of Man, which is in the strait between Ireland and Britain. But it's debated whether he's named after the island or the island is named after him. It's probably the same linguistic root, but there's no clear consensus on which came first, so it's a real chicken and egg scenario. Also, Eman Ablach is associated with the Isle of Man, and it's also considered to be an archetype that Geoffrey of Monmouth used for his Insula Avalonia, the island of Avalon, with the magic apples as well. So, there's a whole thing going on there. Manannan is a cognate of a Welsh figure, and I'm fairly certain that some of these letters, which are written as consonants, are not correctly to be pronounced in Welsh, but I'm going to try with how it's written here. Manawyddan Fablir, but that's probably not correct. Watch that WY be like a V sound or something, and I just want to, why don't we just write that in English as a V? Anyway, that guy is prominent in several parts of the Mabinogion as well, which is the Welsh mythological core. So, Manannan is considered to be the son of Lair, an earlier sea god. His other surname or epithet is often given as MacAlloyd, or a couple of other spellings and or pronunciations. See, I don't even know if the pronunciations are different based on the spelling. Anyway, this could mean son of the soil or son of the land, so he is both of the land and of the sea. It's a whole thing. Now, Manannan is a fairly important guy in the Irish cycles. After the Tuatha are defeated by the human settlers, Manannan becomes the overking of the various Tuatha kings and is responsible for doling out territory to them in the forms of the barrows and the fairy mounds. So he decides, which of the Shi get which land plots. He provides them with a feast of unlimited food, which provides them youth, and he hides them from sight with his Fethfiada, his cloak of magical mist. This may be important later. So he's, kind of an important kingy-type guy. In addition to his general kingly stuff, Manannan is also a prominent mentor and father figure, in addition to being regarded as an ancestor to humans, or at least some specific humans. He has also played a role as a foster father, and in some cases, by the way, he's said to be the foster son of Dagda, the senior deity of the Tuatha, previous big king guy. But in particular, he is also identified as the foster father of Lugh Longhand, the biological father of Cuchulainn. Manannan is also known for his daughters. There's a few of them who are mentioned in tales, variably. In some tellings, he is the father, or possibly the husband, of Ain, goddess of the summer sun. He is usually regarded as the father of Niamh. And yes, I know that's pronounced with the V sound, even though it ends with an MH. Beloved of the hero Oisin. And also Manannan is considered to be the father of Clydna, Queen of the Banshees. So, many both foster and, biological family tree shenanigans going on there. Now, Manannan is also considered to be an owner of great treasures, which he uses for himself, but also distributes to heroes. He has a chariot which travels over water, the self-steering boat, the wave sweeper, the horse Enbar, which is also magical, the sword which saps strength, Fragarak. He also has distributed at some point a silver branch with apples of youth, a goblet of truth, magical armors and helmets, a mystical crane bag filled with treasure, a magic shield of wood, and all kinds of other stuff. He is just awash in cool treasures that he drops on heroes when they need him. Usually it's about Luke, but there's several other guys who get some goodies from the goodie bag. He is also regarded as one of the original owners of one of Diarmuid's mystical blades, the Moraltac, not the Beagletac, probably. Manannan is related to many, many anecdotes and folklores. He appears in all the major cycles of the Irish mythology, though not always as an important character. It would be impossible to summarize literally all of them, but you, if you want to go into your original scholarship, can hit up many particular sources. There is one anecdote, though, related to Manannan that we should probably get into because it will be represented later, which is that there is a note in the Ulster cycle that one of the other spouses commonly given for Manannan is Fand, a fairy queen or ocean deity herself. She has a run-in with Cuchulainn. First, she curses him to be bedridden for like a year because she was pretending to be a seabird and he threw a rock at her. Don't throw rocks at seabirds, guys. But anyway, she agrees to heal him of his curse. He fights for her enemies. She ends up having an affair with him. But Fand breaks it off when Emmer, Cu's actual wife, shows up with a knife-wielding girl gang. That's how you know she's hardcore. And Fand decides that Emmer is enough woman for Cu, and she can let him go. Manannan uses his magical cloak of mist to have Fand and Cu forget each other. Literally, I think Cu has a line about Manannan the servant, which is like, oh, there's something going on there? I don't remember. I do not remember this incident. Literally, he did it. So, moving on to the Fate stuff. That's where the big bucks happen. We have two phases to talk about here with Fate lore. Manannan and Bazett, who's the body of the pseudo-servant. So, Bazett's personality is prominent in the earlier sessions, Manannan in the later ones. It's pretty easy to get into. Manannan is still referred to as being originally male. This even comes up in the story that we've gotten so far. But sometimes in the profile, female pronouns are used for them occupying Bazett's body. We'll probably continue to refer to as the feminine just for the sake of clearing out some stuff. But the pronoun thing may just be related to being an alter ego in only one aspect of Manannan, a very specific one that is with Bazett. We'll get in there. Also, if Fate ditches any confusion about the Tuatha, straight up calls Manannan a divine spirit. There's no shenaniganery here. They're just like, yeah, divine spirit. So, Bazett Fraga Mekremitz, whose name I always want to spell with an additional E at the end of Bazett. Anyway, she is a member of the Mages Association and is a sealing designation enforcer, which basically makes her a member of the Clock Tower's secret police, a specialist in fighting mages and applying sealing designations, which is when the Mage Association thinks you're too cool for school and needs to put you in a basement somewhere. Or possibly in the ground, if you won't go to the basement. Bazett is actually said to be from a coastal village in Ireland. Her family are mages, but do not typically associate with the Clock Tower. She broke away at the ripe old age of 15 to find her own path, and tried to join the Mage Association, but was denied acceptance due to her skills, but was instead employed as an enforcer. Basically, it sounds like she didn't have enough skills that weren't punching things, and so they were like, we won't take you as a student, but you can be a cop. During her lonely childhood, she became obsessed with the legends of various Irish heroes, but especially Cuchulainn, hence her desire to summon him as a servant later. Now, the Fraga clan that Bazett hails from has a fairly unique sorcery trait. That's just your special mage gimmick. This is known as God's Holder, and it basically means that she has a genetic memory for magecraft. Her family's arts are passed on via bloodline rather than teaching, so everybody who's part of the bloodline is just got the skills. This gives her access to her rune magecraft and the ability to use Fragarak, which is a still extant noble phantasm, as a modern human. She can call on Fragarak because she is from the clan who is supposed to hold this, so she can use her magic to replicate it. Now, this is never explicitly stated outright in, profiles, but this, I assume, means that Bazett is almost assuredly a direct descendant of Manannan MacLear. Sorry, I forgot an extra Manannan from where I wrote that down. There's 4 N's in Manannan. Anyway, he was the original owner of the sword, so this is probably why she can use it, and also explains why she's a good vessel. I'd also say it's very likely she may be descended from Ulsterman as well, because her third skill is called Descendant of the Red Branch, or Successor of the Red Branch, which probably refers to the Knights of the Red Branch, which includes Fergus and Cu, so, there's definitely some history there that works out. Now, Bazett is technically a character from Fate Stay Night, but she never actually appeared on screen, at least in the original. I don't know if they added any more foreshadowing to any of the later enhancements, but I'm pretty sure she doesn't ever actually show up. She is the original Master of Lancer. She used Cu's earrings as her catalyst. However, she made a mistake of trusting Kyrie Kotomine, as they had previously met in the field while Kyrie was an execution for the church. So, Bazett performs her summoning in Kotomini's church, he ambushes her and takes her command seals, leaving her for dead. This leads to the plot of Hollow Ataraxia, which is its own whole thing, but explains her prior relationship in FGO with Karen and Angramanyu. So, we won't go into that here. That's a different subject for a different time. But just know that that's like the 1-2 beats here. Now, Bazett has had several other cameos in Fate Media around the FSN time. There's like a picture of her in the Case Files anime, for instance, stuff like that. She is a prominent additional character who ends up appearing in Prisma Ilia, which is a show that really shows off her combat skills and rune magecraft. But yeah, so she's scattered around anywhere where it would be appropriate in the timeline. But her big claim to fame is technically Hollow Ataraxia with a backporting that, like, she should have been there in Fate Stay Night. Now, there's no real explanation in her profile for why she's an alter ego, other than the usual that Manannan is probably only a portion of the original power passed to Bazett. But I'm sure there will also be some other stuff coming up. The fact that, like, in the story, spoilers if you're not caught up on the time gates I get, but the fact that in the story they're divided into two beings probably makes more sense for alter ego as well. Anyway, I do want to note just one little last thing before we get out of here to talk about some more stuff. There may have been a little mythological error in earlier Fate works, conflating Manannan with Angus, who was the birth son of Dagda. Angus was the foster father of Diarmuid and provided with him his magical swords and spears. Manannan is regarded as the original owner of Moraltak. There are some notes that were translated from Fate Zero material that says he was the origin of all Diarmuid's NPs. That includes the spears and stuff, which is, as far as I can tell with a quick skim, speedrunning this over the weekend, not the accepted interpretation. FGO seems to have sorted this out a little bit. It just says that Manannan bestowed magical items which came to be owned and used by the likes of Ku and Diarmuid, not necessarily specifically sorting anything out. Okay, let's talk mechanics then. Now, so, Manannan is an alter ego who is tied for first place attack with King Protea, but has lower HP than her, so, still pretty decent stats. She is Quick Arts Buster with an astonishing 6-hit quick cards and still 3-hit arts cards, so her 0.8 NP gain is super good. I think they realized that you kind of need to NP to use this character well, so yeah, they went very ham with that NP gain. Soz. Bazett's NP requires some explanation. It is technically a quick, non-damage NP, but Fragarak is described as the ultimate counterattack, so it is indeed a counter. Proccing the NP, using the NP card, will grant Bazett 1 turn of taunt, gives attack up for 1 turn based on overcharge, and gives her a special status called Fragarak Counter. The Fragarak Counter means that if Bazett is hit with an attack or targeted by an enemy skill action, note that this doesn't include breakbar buffs or some other story scenarios which don't use actions. The enemy has to use up their action to either attack or skill target Bazett. She retaliate with a 1-hit quick NP level damage, which also gives the targeted enemy hit quick res down for 3 turns by 10% and generates 10 stars automatically. So, yes, if you are attacked by a hostile action, does not include a self-buff. If you are attacked by a hostile action, Bazett immediately counters with an effect that does damage like an NP, even though it is not technically an NP. Well, it is probably like an NP card, but you know what I mean. So, this counter explicitly cannot break bars. It sets them to 1 if this would happen. Doesn't even, set them to break stage, always reduces them to 1 HP. The Fragarak counter is neither a buff nor a debuff, so it cannot be dispelled, blocked, or cured. If your enemy applies like a buff block when you would use the NP card, for instance, you will miss out on the taunt and attack up, not the counter. Similarly, if they remove your buffs, the same way it goes. The Fragarak counter can be triggered multiple times in 1 turn if enemies keep hitting Bazett. It procs every time she is targeted because the buff lasts 1 turn. But if she dies from the attack, it does not proc if she is killed, I should say. Also, I'm going to put this note here. I've got conflicting reports on whether or not Guts works. On the Wikia, it says that Fragarak will proc if you were revived via Guts. Game Press says that it doesn't, so I wouldn't count on it, and be sure to sound off in the comments if you know for sure whether or not Guts works. She cannot fire if she is immobilized by some sort of stun effect, so if the enemy does a stun debuff on Bazett, and that procs before she gets a chance to counter, doesn't work. Similarly, if you're stunned from like a terror effect or something, doesn't work. And it does proc from both AoE and targeted effects, so enemies doing AoE attacks or AoE skills will be hit, and it always counters the target who targeted her, so it bypasses taunt. If enemy puts a target focus on somebody else, but they still attack you, the counter still goes to them. It's pretty good, but has a lot of little wibbly weird things to keep in mind. We'll discuss some strategy later. Her first skill is a 20 to 30% overall on quick, buster, cards, crit damage, and also specifically a bonus damage versus casters, all lasting 3 turns. Quite a lot of extra damage. Her second skill is a 30 to 50% battery and also gives her 1 turn of Star Absorb and 50 to 100% crit damage. I feel like this is kind of in a reverse order just because, I mean, I guess you crit to break 1 bar and then you set up the counter so that you can counter their next bar or something. I don't know, man. Break their bar and then counter on their last HP, which doesn't have a break bar effect. It's a little, sorry, I'm just saying, it's a little weird that you have the charge up to get to your NP and then have your big crit burst turn because using Froggeruk will generate stars. But her final skill is very important. It gives her 1 turn of evade and of debuff immunity, so just generally hoping to prevent you from being stunned, and also a 10 to 20% infusion of stars. Her passives are Magic Resistance B for inherent debuff resist, Writing A for big quick up. Those quicks are really going to slap, and they will also slap because she's got Divinity B for just an inherent damage plus. She also has a unique passive called God's Holder EX. This means that Bazett's offensive buffs do not expire until the end of the enemy turn for Froggeruk reasons. Normally, when you have like a 1-turn buff, it will end the moment your turn ends, and then it goes to the enemy turn. Because of Froggeruk, she gets to keep her buffs on the enemy's turn until your turn starts again. So it's very helpful. Also gives her a very slight crit buff. She does like 5% extra crit damage overall. Now, Bazett is a very interesting servant. She is an alter ego, which means she already has a decent spread of class advantage, and has that bonus damage versus casters, so she's real good at killing bosses in certain circumstances, though keep in mind, she will not be doing any minimum turn kills because she can't break bars, but depending on what buffs will initiate when you break a bar, she's pretty great at the crackback, assuming that she lives through all of it. And this also allows you to do what in my notes I've called bootleg farming clears, and they are a little bootleg because there's a little bit RNG involved, but still. Because she can counter multiple times per turn, if a wave of 3 enemies each hits her with a skill or attack, she will just pop them. She's doing single target quick NP damage to them. However, if your enemies engage in self-buffs, this won't work, so consider applying some skill seal to make it guaranteed to work, depending on your enemies. And like I said, it will turn some of your clears into coin flips, which people are not for, but it is also very funny to let enemies just kill themselves. Now, for team support, you're going to want to consider buffs to quick. That's where she's got the gas already. Her quick cards are really good. Her damage is really good, and she sets up for future quick plays. This means Scotty is a very obvious one. With those charges, I believe you can basically 3-turn farm charge if you set her up with some CEs we'll talk about later in the double Scotty. But also, you want to consider some defensive buffs, because if Bazett eats it, you lose your value. If she dies halfway through, your strategy is cooked. This means I would argue that Osakabe Hime's ability to increase max HP and defense on her NP can be helpful in this regard, and Taigong Wang is a quick-focused writer who has an AoE skill seal if you want to guarantee farm against some of your enemies. Obviously not all of them, but it's a thing to keep in mind. In future, Summer Scotty is going to be a quick buster hybrid support unit, so that might be good for follow-up turns on those break bars. You know, make sure you're proccing really good to chew through some extra damage, or just keep people alive. For CEs, well, she has a 50% battery, so anything in that sounds pretty good. I would push for ones which do quick up. There's a few of those, but keep them in mind. If you want a double Scotty farm, a K-scope is recommended for this, but you should be able to set it up so that everybody can keep NP charging and firing and all that good stuff. If you're fighting a boss, you may want to consider defensive options such as a Volumen, just so that, you know, she's going to, at minimum, tank some of the hits without really getting them. Anyway, for other stuff, as an alter ego, Bazett's Ascension mats are basically just Rider and Caster mats. She sees a little bit more than usual, but it's just those, no, other materials involved, just statues. This is mirrored in her skill costs as well, so she needs both Caster and Rider gems, which is pretty appropriate for Manannan. But it does mean that until you get to skill 7, she doesn't need any extra mats. You can use red and yellow skill gems entirely to go all the way to 7 without needing to get into your extra stuff. But that extra stuff does include shells, pages, eggs, and scarabs, so do keep that all in mind. Now, Bazett will be available in this Valentine's event and in a rerun banner next year. Also, the new Valentine's in JP hasn't been announced and scheduled yet, but almost assuredly there will be another return banner for, previous year's Valentine's SSRs as well. And as a limited SSR, she's going to be featured in all future Lucky Bag combos. And this has been your Wanted Speedrun video. Them's the breaks. Enjoy your chocos, everybody. We'll get on out of here. If you like this video, give it a like. If you got any comments, leave them in the comment section down below. Tell us how you did on the banner already. Are you waiting to roll for some other stuff? Whatever's up. You can also join our Discord link, as always, in the video description and on our channel page. We have a rolling thread, even, if you want to share your rolls with people. If you're new here and haven't already, please subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and also like our regular podcast, Let's Talk FGO, every week about FGO and also other stuff. It's a great way to kill time while you're farming. You can also ring the bell for notifications so you always know when we post a new video or when we stream. Usually I try to be more timely with wanteds, so we'll keep that up. Though, I don't even realize what the next SSR is. It might be... because it's not White Day. If it's the collab, that's going to be a weird one. Anyway, consider ringing the bell. Consider joining our channel membership for access to membership badges and emotes. And consider supporting us on Patreon to get access to videos early. And speaking of our patrons, let's give a quick shout out to some of them, including Adam Hart, Blacklist OG, Call Me Zed, Carlos, Dragon, Vice Iceberg, Jeremy Vasquez, JDV9000, Just the Fae, John Sandoval, Chris Starlight, Legendary Boss Hunter, Liam Kessler, Regent Raptor, Rise of Kenji, Rogue Robin, Sharwar, Sean Pryor, Some Guy Named Bob, and Baron the Crow. Thank you very much for your support, everybody. See you next time.